if we have three different opinions, we just direct things three different ways. And then when we're editing, the cream always rises to the top, or whatever feeds the story best presents itself.
Good evening. I'm Zelda Adams.
I'm Toby Poser.
I'm John Adams, and welcome to Rocklin Graves.
That was amazing. Well, welcome everyone. This is something I haven't done on the channel before. We've got some very exciting guests here that are joining us today. The film crew behind Hellbender, which I reviewed somewhat recently on the channel, and their new movie Where the Devil Roams, which I've now seen twice. I just watched it again in preparation for this. I'm very excited to have you guys on. I've been a fan of your work for a while now. And I'm looking forward to chatting for a little bit about those two movies primarily and the future of where things are going. So how are we all doing?
Doing
Hey,
so good. Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Of course, yeah. No, this is really exciting. When Hellbender first came out, it did really well. Like you had like Chris Stuckman reviewing it, and Mike Flanagan has it on his list of his favorite horror movies of all time, which is insane. That's got to be crazy. And I know Toby, you actually got to work on Fall of the House of Usher recently, which I didn't know you were in it, and then I was watching the show, and I was like, oh, look, there she is. So what was that like? That must have been cool.
It was fucking awesome.
Was Mike on set that day? Because I know he only directed half of the episodes.
Yeah, he didn't direct that one. Mike Fimignari directed it, but he was there and I got to see him. Yep.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about Hellbender, and then I want to move on to Where the Devil Roams. When you guys were working on Hellbender, was there any expectation that it was going to take off in the way that it did, or was that because the movies are very, very unorthodox, and I mean that in the best way possible. They're these very bizarre, unique projects. So I'm wondering if you were surprised by how far the movie went.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
Uh, it was beautiful. We were definitely surprised, but I think what we learned was that there's a slice of the horror community that we're communicating with, and that they're communicating with us. And that's what we learned. And it's really nice because that way we could make Where the Devil Roams and continue the conversation with people, because we're not making like glossy Hollywoodish movies. We're making kind of handcrafted little family films. And it's nice that we're able to do it.
Were you and Toby doing this before you had children, or is this something that came along later on?
No, we was 2010 and Zelda was 6 and Lulu was 11. And we just decided to take off for a year and make a film. And then we never stopped.
Well, I don't blame you. And I'm also glad that you didn't. With Hellbender, was that something, because I know that was made during the first lockdown when everyone was in isolation. Was that something that was born from the isolation, or was that a concept that you had in mind that then you had this perfect opportunity to make? Because you're working on like one or two locations in the forest around the house, right? And it's a very small cast of characters. So was that just something where you were like, oh, this is the perfect time to do this? Or did that come about because of the isolation?
I think that there were a lot of different factors, but COVID definitely was one of the deciding factors of our storyline and the directions that we went. We did want to tell like a coming of age story, and like the discovery of like powers. And we originally kind of had a more broader idea where we were going to have Izzy going to a high school and maybe like a love interest. And then with COVID, we were like, that's absolutely not happening. And we think that's honestly a gift in disguise because we can't afford all of that. It was perfect because I think with COVID came a lot of, as you said, like isolation and loneliness, and in that time like self-discovery. So that was something that we pushed into the storyline, definitely. But we also didn't want to make it overly obvious because we thought that it would like make the film kind of stuck in that time, like, oh, that's a COVID film, you know what I mean? We wanted it to be relevant beyond COVID and before it too. But there's definitely like pieces of it in there that I specifically connect with. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of things that were coming out of that time, and it was nice to sort of see creative people putting out things that made the isolation feel less lonely. And I think that was probably part of the reason that Hellbender took off in the way that it did, was because it was such a contained story and we were all living in a very contained way at the time. And then also just something weird is good to have when you're stuck inside all the time. You need something that's just like way out there and unusual. So when you're working with, because you guys are always working as a family, right? And I notice in Where the Devil Roams, there's quite a bit more going on there, but you're primarily working very tight-knit with family. How is the work divided among you guys? Because I was looking at the credits and you're all credited writer-director. What does that look like on set?
It's just a great democracy, really. I mean, if we have three different opinions, we just direct things three different ways. And then when we're editing, the cream always rises to the top, or whatever feeds the story best presents itself. But we really, we each have different strengths, and there are certain things we like doing more than others. Zelda's really great with the camera, as is John. I like writing, or at least creating some kind of template. John's really good with action and building a set, and so we just kind of lean on each other. And then when it's time to shoot, we just get rolling.
Thematically and tone-wise, we pretty much all have the same opinions. Like there's not like one of us that's like a slapstick comedian and another person that's like an action hero. Like we all generally agree on the tone that we're going for. So there's not a lot of like artistic difference. It's really just how to capture what we all want.
And by the sounds of it, your process is very sort of free form, because I don't know if you have absolutely no scripting, but I know that your scripting is fairly loose if there is any. And then it sounds like you're even in the editing process where you're like, well, maybe we'll try this out, maybe we'll try that out. So there's a lot of free flowing creativity from like start to finish, which is really cool.
I can't memorize a script, so I really don't like that. But I think also we're very lucky that we're operating as a small unit, because we can shoot things, go home and look at it, learn, and reshoot it if there's a problem, if it doesn't look natural, or if it's forced, or if there's anything. So we do have that luck that, like, for example, a bigger production wouldn't have, because they have to get it that day in that time. We can get it, learn, and re-get it.
I mean, if we have other people on set with us, we usually have a template of a scene that that we kind of riff off of. But if it's just us, often we kind of know what we want to get to, and then we really discover the scene just by going through the motions.
And it's great too, because that only works if you guys have a similar creative vision. So I guess that ties into the last thing we were talking about, because that would fall apart so quickly if you guys weren't on the same sort of wavelength with it. So you can feel that when you're watching the movie too. There's a lot of cohesiveness with you guys. I remember when I was watching Hellbender for the first time, I wasn't aware that you guys were all related at the point. I was like, the chemistry between them is like, it didn't feel like watching scripted scenes a lot of the time. It was like watching family banter, which I guess it was. Yeah.
That's great.
Yay!
Yeah. Well done on that. There is this block for people who are aspiring creatives, no matter what it is, if it's film, if it's writing, if it's music. There's this creative block where people are afraid to take the idea in their head and try and jumpstart it, because they might feel like they don't have the resources available to them to bring the vision to life in the way that they want to. What would you say to people who are in that position, who have an idea and really want to do it, but keep putting it off because they're waiting for an opportunity that might not come?
Okay. Don't do that. Shoot immediately and just solve your problems as you go. If you've written something too big, strip it down. That's what we did with Hellbender. We were going to shoot in high school and have 15 kids. COVID hits. Oh, there goes the high school. There goes the 15 kids. What was the point of this scene? Just burn it down to what you can do, because you need to shoot things, and you need to shoot them fast, and you need to get them out so that you can learn. And other ideas are coming. So get rid of the idea in your head to make room for the next idea.
Yeah, I'll add on to that and say I completely agree. I think people underestimate the power of maybe wasting a little bit of time and material. Like, but it's not a waste at all because you really learn by just going out there, messing up, and then understanding why you messed up, and then you're not going to do that next time. Like, I think it's really fun because we've made, I think 8 films, and if we look at our first, there's so many things that we wouldn't do nowadays, and that's beautiful because we just didn't know, but we went out there and did it anyway. But because of we went out there and did it, we can see, you know what, that didn't work, but why didn't it work? Let's not do that again. So I think literally just going out there with whatever you have, even if it's like a phone, you know, if you have a phone, you can make a film, which is so exciting. And you can edit it to make it have more color and saturation and highlight. So the world is your oyster with a phone.
Yeah, I think a lot of people too feel like they need a lot of bells and whistles to make a good film. You really need a good story more than the bells and whistles. And so a lot of people just think, oh, I'm waiting on money so I could have this or that, or, you know, but really it's like, no, have a really tight story, have some people you enjoy working with, and just get it done.
Listen to that. Because I know when I'm writing a story, the seed of that story is either an image or it's an atmosphere, like a feeling. When you're first getting a story idea, what is usually the seed that then grows into it? Is it an image in your head? Is it a location? Is it a specific story beat?
Super great question.
I think Zelda is best.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I love that. I think, well, it really depends on the film that we've made and who's bringing the original idea. I know specifically Where the Devil Roams, that was born from a dream. So I would say kind of, visuals from a dream. I used to watch American Horror Story a lot with Toby and Lulu, and season 4 scared the living hell out of me with the Twisty the clown. And I would always like wake up or like dream wake up, and he was like next to my bed, like staring at me like this, and it was just horrifying. And I remember just trying to like work through that dream and thinking about, you know, a clown, and maybe, you know, trying to like rationalize it, like maybe a clown, he's not such a bad guy, he's got like a family, and maybe he's the protagonist of his own story. And so that's kind of like the idea that I brought to the fam about like you know, a traveling group of a family of clowns, and how they're up to no good, but also they're beautiful and messed up, and we love them. And so that's kind of like where the idea was born. We didn't stick with the clown idea just because it was going to be really tough, and like we didn't think we could do that, which is perfectly acceptable. I can still make a clown movie someday. But yeah, I think that's a perfect example of someone bringing like one little visual or idea or dream, and then everyone throwing different ideas at it.
Yeah, that's great. I was trying to guess what the seed had been for Where the Devil Roams, and I thought that it was like some old grainy carnival footage or something, because especially towards the end of that movie where it just, the visual tone gets amazing, like just so wild. It was captivating. It was really, really cool.
Thank you.
Is that something that is slowly fading in over the whole movie? Like each scene, are you slowly making this more and more grainy, and the vignette is getting stronger and the color grading is getting a lot more desaturated? Is that progressively happening through the whole movie?
Actually, it starts it starts kind of like halfway through. And part of the reason it starts halfway through is because the family is full of life and they're doing their thing. But right when things, you know, the point when things go bad, that's when we start draining the life out of the film too.
And you can really feel that right at towards the end, right before the performance, when it's just, it looks exactly like old black and white film. It was beautiful. I was really shocked by the visuals there. It was very dreamy. So I think you also nailed trying to adapt that dream that you had about this. The practical effects in this movie, where the hell did that come from? I was like, in Hellbender, there were some effects where I'm like, clearly it's really cool. Particularly something that stuck in my head was when you put your hand on the wall and the key comes out, which I remember seeing that and just being like, where the fuck did they pull this from? This is so cool. Is it one of you doing these practical effects, or is that someone else that you're bringing on?
The key through the hand is Trey Lindsay, and he's our fifth family member because we've been doing horror ever since we started doing horror movies. We've been teamed up with Trey, and he's like our best friend. He's like our brother. He's this wonderful artist who always says yes, and he does like he did that key, and he's like without him our movies wouldn't be what they were. In fact, he turned Where the Devil Roams into that black and white. That's also the practical effects, the cutting off of the arm and cutting through the neck, and our actual body parts that we buy from a guy online named James Bell. And he does such an incredible job of his stuff is just so real. Zelda and I had been turned on by body horror on the festival circuit when we were traveling with Hellbender, like movies like The Sadness, movies like The Golden Glove. There was a bunch of Megalomaniac. There was a bunch of movies where the body horror was super impressive. So we wanted to do that. We definitely wanted to have really good don't cut away violence with Where the Devil Roams.
Well, you did a good job because I'm also super into this stuff. I've seen The Sadness. It's wild. But I gotta say there were one or two moments in Where the Devil Roams where and it takes a lot to get me there. But particularly when you're getting your tooth removed, that was awful. I didn't like anything about that. So congratulations.
That's Lulu's tooth. Her tooth was in the Deep You Dig as well.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Is it actually?
Yeah, that tooth is one of
so you've kept her tooth
actresses.
around.
We kept her tooth, yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that Lulu is credited as Axe Girl in this movie. That was funny. Yeah. Wow. So you've primarily been in the horror genre. Is that something you're planning on continuing? Like you want to just stick with horror? You found your niche. You found a process that works for you guys. You're comfortable with it now, and you're good at it, and very, very creative with it, which is such a refreshing thing to see. Is that something you want to continue on, or do you have interest in jumping out to other genres as well? Or
Well, thank you. And I think so. I think that we've definitely found a home in the horror genre, and also just like the horror crowd. The community is so kind and so welcoming and so intelligent, and it just like I know I feel personally like very grateful to be a part of it. So I want to stick around as long as I can.
Yeah, and the crowd is we have a great open conversation with them. I think we're talking about really fun subjects. They're talking to us and we're talking to them, and it's a great space for art too. It's very open. The horror crew is open to watching art. And, they don't have to like it, but they're open to it. And that's really important. And we're going to have to listen to your music because I see these sweet guitars and keyboards and looks like a mic stand. And what kind of music are we doing here?
So my space is an absolute mess right now because I've been sitting on like 30 songs for like a year now. And I'm just in the last 3 days starting to demo some of them out and get some scratch recorded. So things are just scattered everywhere. I can send you guys some stuff though. I do that. It's not the same kind of stuff that you do. It's sort of indie-ish,
nice,
folky music. Yeah. I can send some of it over to you guys. But that's one thing to talk about is that your music it's not just a side project you guys do. It's very heavily integrated into your movies. It's the soundtrack is all. Do you guys do all of the soundtrack yourself?
Yeah. It's something that we love doing, and we're super lucky because when The Deeper You Dig came out, we put all of our music on it, and it got received really well. And we love doing music together, and so it was like a nice gift to us because it did get received well with The Deeper You Dig. So we put it in Hellbender, and it continued to get accepted, and so it's now it's really just a part of our filmmaking that just is very lucky, and we really enjoy it.
Yeah, and it was part of the story in Hellbender as well, which was cool that you guys were integrating it into the narrative elements. Well,
that was one of the reasons we put it in Hellbender, was because we do have such a good time making music together. And Hellbender was going to be a pretty dark movie. It's pretty brutal. And so we wanted to have an element of fun in it, and the companionship of the mother and the daughter. And music was a great way to show that great relationship.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I do have one other question for you guys. the end of Hellbender, and spoilers for Hellbender, where is it that you were actually shooting in that? First of all, the thing that you have to crawl through to get to whatever the hell that space is was one of the coolest things I've seen in a while.
Awesome.
Now the space itself, that just like utter blackness, were you guys shooting in just a dark room? Were you using green screen? What is that?
We shot a couple of dark places.
Okay.
The first was, though, we were living, it was during the pandemic, and we were living in an RV, and we were in a Washington State Park that had these awesome like old bunkers, and so we were shooting in one of those first.
Yeah.
But then we needed to reshoot some stuff, and we weren't there, and we just like the very last moment of the film was actually down on our driveway on a dark night.
But those bunkers
Was it?
were great because we could use the real sound. It sounded like a cave, like it had that wonderful cave reverb that you can't fake.
Oh, so that wasn't digital.
No way. That was all
fantastic.
that was all that those bunkers. They had this amazing sound.
So I know Hellbender has a DVD release. No Blu-ray as far as I know, which is unfortunate. I would love to pick one up.
I think there might be one, but down the line.
Okay, and is Where the Devil Roams getting a home media release as well?
Yeah, and we put together a really fun behind the scenes thing that was
Blu-ray.
just a joy to do. So that's exciting. It's being pressed right
beautiful.
now, and we're excited.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch. I'll be watching the bonus. I'm so glad you guys are putting bonus features. So many, even home media releases aren't putting like super in-depth bonus features anymore, which is, so I'm really happy to hear that. I will be picking those up.
Oh, great. Thank you.
I think that might be all I had for you guys. This is
It was so fun. Your questions were so sweet. Like, thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I've never done this before, so I had no idea how this was going to go. So I really do appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to come on and chat about this. It's been really exciting for me because, again, I've been a fan of your work for years now. To get to sit down and chat, my cousin was quite excited when I told her that I was getting on call with you guys. Yeah, I would love to do this again sometime if something
Anytime.
comes up for it.
Yeah.
Beautiful
great.
conversation. Anytime. And
Absolutely.
Zell, nice to see you.
Nice to see you guys too.
Yeah, I know you're away for school right now, eh?
Yeah.
Well, best of luck to you. I'm sure you'll excel.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Peace.
Bye.
Take care.